Welcome to this channel. What you are about to hear is something you really have to listen to. But first, if you believe you should have a say in what goes on in our beloved country, then subscribe to this channel now.
When a city elects a mayor, it is an expression of its deepest hopes and its most pressing anxieties. When Zohran Mamdani won the office of mayor of New York City, the message was unmistakable. A new generation, frustrated by stagnation, is demanding a radical, fundamental shift toward affordability. But the reaction from the city's financial elite? That was even more shocking. Within days, one of America's most influential real estate titans, Barry Sternlicht, CEO of Starwood Capital, issued a stark, almost apocalyptic warning. He claimed Mamdani's policies would, in his words, turn New York City into Mumbai. That single phrase has ignited a firestorm. It's not just a criticism, it is a declaration of war between Wall Street and Gracie Mansion, pitting the forces of capital against the mandate of a democratic socialist. To understand this panic, we have to look past the sensational headline and look at the stakes. On one side, you have Barry Sternlicht, a billionaire, a titan of global property who represents the massive institutional investment that literally built the modern New York skyline. His primary interest is return on investment. On the other, you have Zohran Mamdani, a 34-year-old former rapper and democratic socialist whose platform is built on one core promise: freezing rents on New York's million rent-stabilized apartments. His primary focus is tenant protection. The central tension is clear. Can you guarantee housing as a right without destroying the market that provides it? Sternlicht's argument is purely a capitalist one. Mamdani's policies, like forcing major projects to be union-only, are already making construction prohibitively expensive. Layer a rent freeze on top of that, and the financial math for a landlord simply does not work. Let's be precise about Sternlicht's fear. He warns of a chain reaction of non-payment. His theory goes like this. New York's current housing laws already make it difficult to evict non-paying tenants. If Mamdani's policies are perceived as giving tenants a moral license to withhold rent, and, crucially, if the Rent Guidelines Board he controls votes for a freeze, it removes any revenue growth landlords need to offset soaring costs like insurance and property taxes. This is the key insight we must grapple with. If a landlord cannot make money, they cannot afford maintenance. Sternlicht invoked images of magnificent colonial buildings that are rotting in Mumbai because their owners cannot make a return on investment. That is the nightmare scenario for New York's old, stabilized housing stock. Not that the buildings disappear, but that they become financially distressed, with no capital for repairs, and gradually fall into squalor or tax foreclosure. A crisis of dilapidation, not development. But we also have to respect the why behind Mamdani's win. The reality is that median landlord income in some stabilized buildings has recently been flat, while the tenants, facing years of stagnant wages, are struggling just to put food on the table. For the over 1 million New Yorkers in rent-stabilized apartments, this is a moral argument, not a spreadsheet one. A rent freeze is literally an economic lifeline. Mamdani's campaign pointed to city programs that can subsidize struggling landlords. However, many nonpartisan analysts echo Sternlicht's core structural concern. Rent freezes don't solve the housing crisis. They only shift the cost. They do nothing for the unregulated market, and they disincentivize the very new construction that New York desperately needs to increase overall supply. So the panic is real. The financial class is not just crying wolf because they fear smaller returns. They are warning that an over-leveraged city housing system is extremely fragile. And when the financial titans start talking about relocating their offices, as Sternlicht confirmed his team is considering, New York City has to pay attention. Now, let's talk about the use of the word Mumbai. Sternlicht's critique was economic, but the language he chose was instantly racialized and polarizing. This is the identity trap of modern politics. Mamdani is the son of an acclaimed Indian filmmaker and an Indian-origin Ugandan scholar. By invoking Mumbai as a symbol for decay and financial failure, Sternlicht didn't just critique a policy. He attached that decay to the very place and heritage of the mayor-elect. It is a political strategy to associate a policy you disagree with, democratic socialism, with foreign chaos and ethnic difference. It forces Mamdani, who has eloquently celebrated his South Asian roots, into a political defensive position. Not only must he prove his policies work, he must simultaneously prove his loyalties and his vision of New York is not a foreign one. This weaponization of identity is a shortcut. It short-circuits honest debate and replaces it with culture war clickbait. So, where does this leave us? We have a newly elected progressive mayor who believes the current system is fundamentally broken. And we have the city's financial bedrock sounding the alarm that the cure is worse than the disease. The truth, as it often is, lies in the complexity. Mayor Mamdani needs to demonstrate that his progressive agenda is not simply punitive. He must pair his rent freeze with a robust plan for tax relief and financial incentives for the landlords who actually maintained the stabilized housing stock. He needs to show that he can get new housing built, not just keep old housing cheap. The real estate community, for its part, needs to stop reaching for the most polarizing cultural grenade and engage in a good faith negotiation. If they want to preserve their investments, they must understand that the affordable housing problem is a systemic threat to the city's long-term health, not just a nuisance to their bottom line. New York City's vitality has always depended on the energy of its people and the strength of its economy. When those two forces are in conflict, the city itself suffers. The challenge for Mayor Mamdani is not simply to win an election, but to govern a city that is fundamentally divided over the very meaning of progress. The choice ahead is not between New York and Mumbai, but between stagnation and sustainable change. And that will require more than just slogans. It will require the hard, difficult work of governing. Thank you.